This is James Taylor, and you're listening to The Creative Life. The Creative Life podcast is a show created for you, the creative. If you're looking for inspiration, motivation, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's a musician, writer, artist, designer, performer, educator, or creative entrepreneur. They share their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, their insights, and much, much more. In this episode, I speak with entrepreneur, business coach, and podcast host Stephen Christopher. We talk about the power of podcasts, niching down, coaching and mastermind groups, and preloading as a creative. Enjoy this episode. Hey, it's James Taylor, and I'm delighted today to have Stephen Christopher. Stephen is a Colorado-based entrepreneur, business coach, and podcast host. As the founder of Seequs Digital Marketing, he has built a team who help business owners achieve results they never thought possible. Meanwhile, as host of the Business Revolution podcast, he shares with business owners how to grow both their businesses and also to improve their lives. And it's my great pleasure to welcome Stephen on the show today. Welcome, Stephen.
James, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So share with our listeners, what's going on in your world just now?
Geez, we got all kinds of cool stuff going on in my world right now. My digital marketing firm, Seequs, as you mentioned, is growing quite a bit. We've been kind of in a hiring spree towards the last part of this year, really through niching down who our ideal client is and just continually getting more clear on that. It's actually started to bring in a lot more business, and our my podcast is starting to. I guess really take off. You know, I focus on adding as much value as I can, and it's starting to, I guess, pay off as far as the results people are getting from listening to it. So it's been a really fun last or start to the second half of this year.
Podcasting, I mean, obviously we're doing a podcast just now as well, but it's such an amazing medium, I think, because it's just one of those few things. Obviously, you can listen to podcasts while you're getting other things done, while you're commuting or in the gym or out walking or whatever you're doing. But it's just that power of actually being able to speak and have the conversation and going right into the earbuds, right into the mind of the person, the listener. It's an incredible format.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, it's only going to get more popular. I mean, soon they're going to be putting it into cars. So now people are going to just be browsing podcasts as part of kind of their daily life when they're driving to work through their vehicle. And
you definitely hit the mainstream. I saw in the news this week that one of the political candidates for the US presidency is now coming out with their own podcast as well. So it's definitely entered the mainstream.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of cool. It's like where blogging was maybe 10 years ago. Right now, kind of everybody wants to have a podcast, but I think over the course of the next couple of years, we're going to see a lot of those fall off, and then we're going to see the really good ones, stick around, and those are going to be the ones that, deliver the most value. And you mentioned you kind of
really drilling down into finding your ideal client or your kind of customer avatar. We have a lot of our listeners listening just now. They're entrepreneurs or they're creatives, and they're doing work, and that's something that they really struggle with, trying to figure out, well, who are they creating this work for? Who is their ideal customer? Are there any tips that you and your team kind of learned as you were kind of going through that process?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things come to mind. So the first thing that comes to mind, which this is what I struggled with the most, and that was actually the idea of niching down. So for a long time, I thought, well, our business can actually serve any business, right? So everybody is our client. And I didn't want to turn away any business by saying, oh, we only work with these types of businesses, or oh, we specialize in working with these types of businesses. So for years, I kind of mentally refused to do that because I didn't want to turn away any business, kind of almost that mindset of scarcity or lack. And by just finally accepting the fact through a lot of conversations with mentors that the best businesses in the world all niche down. I mean, look at the most successful law firms and CPAs and business coaches. I mean, they all niche down. And when you start to do that, then you really start to communicate with that ideal client, and you are capable of offering the best value to them. And then that's when you start being able to charge a higher price. You attract more of your ideal client, as opposed to when everybody's your client. Nobody really knows why they're supposed to come to you or if you're the best fit for them. So that was one of the biggest things for me when it came to that. And then as far as finding our ideal client, what we did is we went through a process of just identifying what are our strengths, what are we really good at within the clients that we're working with right now. And so we made a list of 10 or 15 things that we were great at. And then we went out and said, okay, what industries or what people can we best serve with this skill set? And then that's kind of how we picked our ideal clients.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I've seen that happen time and time again. And it's a hard thing to, that mindset, making that change of niching down and really kind of drilling into what makes you as a company. What are the kind of the key strengths you have. I'm thinking of a company I worked with a couple of months ago who I think have actually just been sold, possibly to Sony or one of the big companies, called Famehouse, and they do a lot of online marketing related things for music artists. And because they just really focus specifically on music artists, in their case specifically EDM and dance artists, they can just be so specific because they know what works, and also I would imagine from the actual cost of marketing, it's much more efficient to be able to market once you kind of have that, you've got a bit more kind of specificity over who your audience actually is.
Yeah, I agree 100%. One of my friends internally within their company, their slogan is pick a niche and get rich. Now, they don't publicize that, but it's the way that they think about it. They turn down really big business because it's not in their niche and it's not going to help them grow their niche.
Yeah.
And
so where did you first kind of learn your skills, your craft as a marketer and as an entrepreneur?
So I started a mortgage company in the U.S. in around 2004, 2005. And what we found is that we were doing well because everybody was doing well in mortgages back then. But we launched a really cool new website. And I thought, oh my gosh, when we launch this website, there's nothing like it. This is going to be great. The leads are just going to flow in like crazy as soon as we turn it on. Well, we flipped the switch, turned the new website on. Nothing happened. It was just crickets, no new leads. Nobody was finding it. And so through some research, we found out about this thing called SEO, or search engine optimization. And we hired somebody to help a little bit. And after a couple of months, I realized, wait a minute, I can do this even better. I can market this website and get it to show up in search engines for the key terms that our clients are looking for. And so through just kind of studying and playing around with my own company's website, I learned how to do search marketing. I've always enjoyed marketing and sales, but over the course of a couple years, I learned with our mortgage company website really how to attract people to a website online, and that's what got me into web marketing.
But when you talk about SEO, search engine optimization, that can often sound like quite a technical kind of form of marketing, because you're dealing with algorithms and how to get things up the rank and get that that on that first page of Google or Bing or whatever the site is. So do you come at it from a very kind of technical perspective, or are you more thinking about the creative side and creating kind of content in order to change your rankings?
So it takes both. Nowadays, you have to pay attention to the technical side of SEO, but also a lot of it is just what are you creating as far as content goes, and how are you showing up in the eyes of the search engine? So when you just think about it from kind of an easier perspective or a higher perspective, the whole job of a search engine is to return the most relevant result possible to its users, the searchers. And so when you're creating a website, you just have to think, okay, how can I make this website the most relevant website for the industry that I'm in, or the product I'm selling, or the service that I'm selling? And so when you're creating your content, you just want to create content consistently around that topic so that eventually the search engines will think that you are the most relevant resource for that. And I mean, that's kind of the easiest way to think about it.
But with social media becoming such a thing, and live streaming and other types of stuff happening, which sometimes are not necessarily happening in a search engine place, or a place where the search engines can easily crawl for it. What future does actual SEO actually have with all these, with things like Facebook, where people are just spending all their time in Facebook and not so much time on Google and some of the other search engines?
Great question. So a couple things. One, social media plays a role in where you rank on Google and other search engines. So it's important to have a presence across whatever platforms people are talking about your service or your industry or your company. So you want to make sure that you have a presence on those, because Google actually reads into that. And then you want to think about, where does your ideal client hang out? And so a lot of people will, maybe start a business or run a company, or even just, want to have a better presence for something that they're great at. You want to think, okay, where does the ideal client hang out? If your ideal client is only hanging out on Facebook, then focus all of your energy and effort on Facebook. Don't go out and start 15 social media accounts and try to keep up with Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all of this, because you're actually going to do a disservice to yourself and the people that are trying to consume that information. So really, it goes back to ideal client again. Who are you trying to get in front of, and where are they hanging out? If you want to communicate with 13 to 16-year-olds, or even like early college age, great. You should probably be on Snapchat and Instagram. If you want to communicate with the 30-year-old to 60-year-olds that a lot of them have businesses or are entrepreneurs, then Facebook is probably your platform. And then what will happen is, as long as you're spending your time in the right place, you'll also start to show up higher in search. So you kind of have that covered when somebody does go to Google, because I get that question a lot, people aren't using Google as much. People aren't using search as much. The statistics are still there. I mean, people are still using those search engines, but just make sure that you're also picking whatever social platform that your ideal client or the person you really want to communicate with is hanging out on.
Now, I understand that you're the first entrepreneur in your family, your first kind of business kind of builder in that sense. Was that a little bit kind of worrying? Was it daunting for you kind of going into that when you didn't maybe have any kind of family role models? Who were the kind of role models that you looked to when you were first kind of starting that first business, and then kind of, obviously you're a serial entrepreneur now as well, you've started multiple businesses. How did you kind of find those kind of mentors and kind of teachers and people that you could look up to and kind of try and code exactly what they were doing?
Yeah, so I did it the wrong way. Going back, I would have done this a little bit differently. So what happened is when I was about 14, I started my first business, and it was a car detailing little business that I did to save money to buy a car, have a little bit of cash when I went to college. And so my parents supported it at the time, and they both have worked full-time jobs, same business for 30 years. So they just don't know anything about business. And when I was running that little car cleaning company, they would say things like, okay, cool, this is fun, but you're about to go to college, so it's probably time to stop that. And I had other business owners saying, wow, that's fantastic. You should probably register it as an actual company. And I just didn't really get any support from my parents on it, because they just didn't know any better. They thought, hey, it's a way to make money until you go to college, get a career, work somewhere for 30 or 40 years, and then retire, and then go travel around and live off of your 401k. So I shut the business down, went to college, got a job after college, and just went to work every day miserable. I mean, I would get these headaches when I was driving to work, driving home from work, when I was at work. And I just realized, like, man, this doesn't feel right. This can't be life. And so my parents and family all just said, oh yeah, this is it. Just work for a while. You'll be fine. Eventually you'll get a promotion. Eventually you'll make some money. And then 30 years later, you'll retire. So it just didn't feel right. So I quit my job and just kind of tried a couple things on my own. I wasn't really successful. And then I started a mortgage company and thought, hey, I got this. I'm 24 years old. Money's coming in. This is easy. Owning a business is easy. And then when the mortgage industry crashed in 2008, I realized, wow, I actually don't know anything about running a business. But for the course of about 10 years or maybe 9 years, I didn't really look to anybody else for help. I didn't really read a lot of books. I just thought, hey, I'm smart. I can make this. These gurus out here are just selling books to make money. They don't even know what they're talking about. Well, looking back on that, I was completely wrong. I got into personal development and professional development and finding mentors and coaches after the fact. So after my mortgage company, I hit such a rock bottom. I was like, all right, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that's really when I started looking for coaches and mentors. So the best advice I can give is read the books. look for coaches and mentors. I mean, we live in such a cool age now where you can connect with amazing people and get free content just on the internet, on Facebook, on social media. I mean, you can talk to people that we never had access to 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. But it was a rougher journey for me. I really had to learn that I don't have to make all the mistakes myself. I can learn from other people's mistakes.
And how do you, let's imagine you're starting to read the books, you're listening to the podcasts, you're getting, kind of more information, but you want that next stage, the stage of actually finding someone who's going to be your coach, your business coach, your kind of mentor, or be involved in something, you're going to get involved in some kind of mastermind. Any tips that you'd have to take those kind of relationships to the next level?
Yeah, look for somebody that's doing what you currently want to do. And, right now, it seems like everybody's a coach. I mean, everywhere I look on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and stuff, I mean, everybody's a coach. But when you really look at a lot of these people, they've never actually done what they're coaching people on. So when you're looking for a coach or a mentor, find somebody that's done or currently doing what it is that you want to do. So all of my mentors and coaches and people that I learn from at events I go to, they're doing what it is that I want to do, or they're at least bringing those people into the group that are doing what I want to do. So they're connecting me with those people that are actually doing it. So if you want to start a $1 million business or company, make sure that the person that's coaching you and being your mentor has done that or is currently still doing it. That's the best people to learn from, not necessarily the people that have just read a bunch of books.
Yeah, they have the battle scars to prove it as well. And it's a hard one because you're trying to find those people. And I often find in kind of seeking out mentors and folks that can help me build the businesses that we're involved in. There's almost a sweet spot. There's either people that are currently doing it, they're just further down the road than you are, or there's people who have just come out of it, within the last, say, 3 years or so. It can sometimes be a little bit more difficult if you kind of get involved with folks who've maybe been in the industry, but say 10 years ago, because they have a different framework that maybe the way that industry kind of works. And you kind of, the way I often think about it is triangulation. It's like if in my industry, I'll probably have 2 or 3 different folks who I kind of go to kind of ask and seek kind of support and advice from, and then I kind of just triangulate between those people to try and figure out, no one's 100% right. Trying to figure out which one is where it's kind of sitting and where it kind of feels right for me and my gut.
I love that. And then you're finding out what's best for you, because what's best for each of those people is probably a little bit different. So you're taking all that knowledge and saying, okay, cool, through my filter, what's going to work best for me to accomplish the objective I'm trying to accomplish. I love that.
So where do you go? Let's say you're building your business, and you've got the podcast, you've got all these projects on the go. Where do you generally go to get inspiration, to go for new ideas? And then how do you go about starting to develop those ideas?
So a couple things come to mind. So I'm part of a couple masterminds that meet throughout the country a couple times a year. That's one place that I get a lot of inspiration from. So while we're not meeting, I'll write down questions and things that I'm working on. And then when I go to that event and I have my phone shut completely off, I'm around really great people. I kind of just let my brain work through those things that I'm trying to figure out what's next for me. And that's a really great place. Depending on your schedule and if you can travel or your finances, whatever it is. The other thing that I do is I do a lot of meditation, and not this long drawn out, hour and a half every day or whatever. I mean, I do very short pieces of meditation, and I ask myself those questions. What am I trying to accomplish right now, or what do I need inspiration on? And then I'll just kind of sit down for maybe between 2 and 10 minutes. Quick little meditation. It just quiets my mind and allows me to it allows my subconscious to help answer those questions or help give me that inspiration that I need to get to the next level. Or it might tell me, hey, you need to find a resource because we have no clue how to do this.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing to use meditation for. It's actually a technique that's I've heard that's been taught in the military as well, called preloading, which is very similar to that, essentially where you think about the problem before you go to sleep at night, and then because your subconscious is basically doing the heavy lifting overnight, and then you wake up in the morning, and often you will have, in that shower in the morning, you'll have the solution, because your mind has been looking for connections but in things you're not even thinking about as well. So meditation can have a similar type of effect as that, where you can just kind of quiet the mind, get the if you imagine it's like the on a sea or something, just kind of get it kind of quiet on top of the water, but there's lots of things still going on underneath.
I love that. I ask myself questions every night before I go to bed, and I do a couple affirmations. And sometimes I'll even demand. I'll say, subconscious, I demand that you help me create another idea to grow my business or achieve my goals faster by tomorrow when I wake up.
And what do you feel was holding you back from? Obviously, now you've been winning awards with the business, with the digital marketing business that you have now. What do you think was holding you back as an entrepreneur?
I mean, I think thinking that I had to do it all myself, thinking that, hey, if I'm a business owner or I'm an entrepreneur, I have to have all the answers. I have to be able to do all the work within the business. I have to be able to get all the results. And then I have to make sure that I'm staying on top of and training, anybody that I work with exactly how I do it, because I'm the owner. And when I realized that it's really not my business, it's my employees' business. It's my clients' business. I mean, without them, there would be no business. I'm just kind of leading it in the direction that it needs to go based on our goals, and then learning things that I can train to my clients and train my employees on along the way. So really just letting go was probably one of the most difficult things for me in order to start growing to where we are now.
I mean, that's very true. I mean, I think it's especially the case if a lot of technical founders as well find that really difficult moving from, in Michael Gerber's book, The Myth Revisited, talks about this a lot, and people moving from the mindset of the technician to the manager to the entrepreneur. These are different kind of roles that I suppose are going on here as well. So it sounds like you in that process of letting go for yourself, you've managed to say, okay, there's people that can do this probably better, than I can. And but how do you still stay as you start to build that team, ensuring that everyone's kind of moving in the right direction?
Yeah, so we use a system of KPIs, key performance indicators, and then each area of the business has a couple KPIs that we track. So everything that we do is based on results. So like, just for example, within our company, we don't really have a set work schedule. People come in sometimes early, they leave early, they come in late, leave late, and we have unlimited vacation policy. So it's all about the results that they're getting. That's how we base, are you doing a good job or are you not? And so these KPIs sit on a big screen in our office, and we always know week to week, how are we performing? And so that gives me an idea of where I need to focus. So if I see one indicator is, continually going down, and then I ask, one or two of my managers, hey, what's going on with this? Are you addressing it? Do I need to get involved? Do you need some help? That's really what we watch. And then, I just kind of try to focus on the bigger picture. What's going to move us towards our goals faster, while just keeping an eye on these KPIs. And then something we've done more recently was different people within the business have a responsibility for like one KPI. So even if it's something that everybody does, it's their responsibility. And now when they see it, they're focused on it all the time. So if they see it dropping, they have to go around and kind of try to work to fixing it. So now all of that doesn't fall on me, and I'm running around from one to the next. And the other thing with that is, they actually enjoy the additional responsibility, because now they can kind of own it and watch it grow. And it's more fun, which I didn't think people wanted that. I didn't think people wanted more responsibility. They actually do.
So basically, you have multiple points of accountability as well, so people can feel. And I think that's one of the most demoralizing. I remember years ago when I kind of worked more in the kind of corporate world, and I always felt it was one of the most demoralizing things to give people give someone a KPI, but no way to influence the direction of that indicator. So people were getting hammered all the time for something that wasn't going in the right direction, but there was no way that they could really really do something. So essentially, it sounds like you've kind of almost got two things going on. You've got the things that people are directly related to the job that they're doing, and then you've also got these other, this other role that's kind of going on where KPIs, which are kind of company wide, you've given someone the responsibility to look at that. So you're really starting to move them. That's more in terms of a management thing, not rather than necessarily being a technician of trying to focus on that one number.
Yeah. Yep. Spot on. That's exactly kind of how we're doing. And don't get me wrong, I struggle with this all the time. I mean, if I see, like, I liken our business to a ship, right? And then, this big giant ship, I'm constantly trying to build the ship bigger, but I'm doing that quickly. So I leave a lot of little holes. And then when, I'm building the ship forward, larger and larger, kind of quickly, and then having my team come in behind me and fill in the holes. Well, sometimes when I turn around and I realize, wow, there's like 3 or 4 holes there leaking water. What I used to do is I would run back and try to fix the holes real quick, thinking I was helping everybody. Well, what happened through conversations with my team is they said, well, you give us this task and then you really don't even let us do it. And then you come in and try to help. So it makes me feel like maybe I'm not doing a good enough job or I'm not doing it right. And so I was actually undermining them by trying to help. So now I see the holes, I watch them for a little while, and most of the time somebody fixes it. But if I just go and jump on it, I'm not giving them the opportunity to do that. So I just try to stay forward focused, build the ship as fast as I can, as large as I can, and trust that they're doing a good job. And then we measure it through those basic KPIs.
And I suppose obviously within any kind of organization, you've got different kind of personalities, what people, their strengths and weaknesses. So it sounds like you're the person, you like kind of leading from the front, building new things, starting new things. But there's other people who obviously what they get the most pleasure in is being the completer finisher person. They're not necessarily the person that comes up with new ideas. That's not where their biggest strength is, but they just love going into the detail, getting stuff so it's like a beautifully running ship or a beautifully kind of running machine. So you've kind of got that mixture of different personalities in your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first people I hired was an operations manager, because I am absolutely a starter. I'm an idea person. I'm a terrible finisher. I almost resist following through with an idea all the way to the end, because when it's done, it's like, oh, it's done. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
So I found somebody that's great at that.
And I think that's great because, I think that's something a lot of folks in the creative industry struggle with, lots of ideas, getting started, lots of things, but they're not necessarily the completer finisher that you're talking about. But there's other people out there who they thrive on being that complete finisher, and they would hate to be in a position where they were having to come up with constantly new ideas all the time as well. That would be quite stressful for them. So in this journey that you've gone through, can you tell us about a time when maybe you worked on a project or within a business and you gave it your heart and your soul, but for whatever reason, it just didn't work out like you'd hoped? And more importantly, what were the lessons that you took away from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, the big one for me that comes to mind is when I had my mortgage company. So in 2008, a lot of people know what happened. The mortgage industry just completely crashed. I mean, especially in the U.S. And so within the course of about 72 hours, I went from being a profitable company to having nowhere to do business, nowhere to close loans, and essentially zero income for the company. And so I had funded some of the company on debt. So I had about $100,000 in debt that I got left holding the bag with when that business went under. And that was it was a very good learning experience for me. It was by far the best $100,000 in business education I ever invested. It wasn't necessarily the ideal way to do it, but I just learned so much about, that I didn't know a whole lot about business, that I needed to start learning from other people, and that, I didn't need to be able to do it all on my own. And I didn't have to be this person that was like the know-all, always had to do it right, always had to answer every question. And the other thing that I got from that was just the lesson of perseverance, that even though I was at the very bottom, I couldn't pay my rent, I couldn't put gas in my car. It really wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't fun, but I still had food. I still found a place to live. So being at the very bottom and knowing that, hey, it's really not that terrible, helped me in the future to be able to grow other businesses and say, hey, you know what? The worst case that might happen is it's a little uncomfortable for 6 months or a year, but I'll be fine. So that lesson of perseverance was huge when that mortgage company went under.
And what got you through perhaps those kind of the darkest moments in that, where you're waking up in the morning and there was a lot of financial pressure on you, business pressure on you? What kept you kind of going and kind of getting up and kind of getting out there and working at it?
Yeah, just realizing that there was nothing that I could do about it. And so what was the point of worrying about it? So like, for example, I had creditors calling me every day, and I would just tell them, hey, there's nothing I can do about it. I have no money. You can send whatever letter, you can do whatever you want, but I have no money. So just knowing that there was nothing that I could do to change certain parts of that situation. And when you're dead broke and you can't go anywhere, you can do one of a couple things. One, you can sit on the couch under a blanket and hide, or two, you can find a used book or probably free books about what it is that you want to learn for your next experience. So that's really when I started reading a lot, because that was about all I could afford. So just take advantage of all that free time that you have in an experience like that. And, just make the decision that you're not going to let that experience define you, and that you have greatness within you, and then proceed to find that next opportunity instead of just hiding under the covers.
Mm. And in this, going through that different stage, trying stage of a business as well, and kind of coming out through the other and having success at the other end, can you tell us about an insight or a light bulb moment in that journey that you've had as an entrepreneur?
I mean, we kind of talked about it. One of the biggest ones that I've really focused on lately when I look back at this whole thing is realizing that you can't do it all yourself, and you don't have to. And it's actually not as much fun when you try to do it all of yourself. I talk about the fact that business is supposed to be fun, because I think so many of us either, we want to start a business, or we've started a business and it's kind of in that beginning phase and we're struggling and it's not fun. And there's this kind of this expectation that when you start a business, you're supposed to work really hard and work all morning and all night and on the weekend. Like, you almost get a badge of honor for that, but it's not how it works. Business is supposed to be fun, and you're not supposed to do all the work. You're supposed to build a team and empower other people so that they can get benefit and happiness out of their careers and their life. So, I mean, that was a huge one for me. And then kind of tying that up is, there's 100 ways to do something right. Your way is not always the best, and it's not always the right, and it's definitely not always the only way. So empower people to do things that, that either they're good at or maybe better at than you, and let them do it their way.
And something our listeners may be a bit surprised at is, obviously now you've got the podcast, which is going from strength to strength. You're a very eloquent speaker talking about entrepreneurship and your journey, but you had to overcome a fear of public speaking. This, speaking in public wasn't your thing. Can you talk to that a little bit? Because I think that's something that, a lot of our listeners who they're listening to you just now go, wow, to have that confidence to be able to kind of, be at speaking. I know you do public speaking and you have the podcast. How did you go from having a fear of speaking to getting to that place?
It's funny, even just hearing the question, like, I go back to those days when this interview never would have happened maybe 5 years ago. Like, my spine starts to tingle because I remember how strong those feelings used to be, that hatred of it. So it started with an experience that I had. We won an award for one of my companies, and all I had to do was get up on front of stage, accept the award, and say like 10 words, maybe 30 seconds of accepting it and just saying thank you. And so I practiced this little speech driving to this event, got up on stage, took the award. My business partner at the time said one or two things, and he didn't want to speak either. I got to where I completely forgot everything I was going to say. I leaned over to the mic and I said, thank you. And then got off the stage as fast as I possibly could. And at that moment, I kind of realized, wait a minute. This isn't good. This is really, really bad. So I said, there's one or two things I can do. One, I can just never speak in public again and know that I'm terrible at it. Or two, I can change it, because obviously other people have done it. And I've heard the stories where they say they're scared to death of it. And now look at them. And so I just said, okay, I'm gonna get better at this. I didn't say I'm gonna become a professional speaker. I just said I'm gonna get better at this so that I can communicate and hopefully share a message that might help somebody. So I did some public speaking, like training courses and stuff, and then I just started doing it. I would stand up in a group of 5 or 10 or 15 people when somebody asked for a volunteer to share, and I would share. And even that was really, really uncomfortable. And I just realized that, hey, something that scares you is probably something that I need to do, or at least lean into and try to experience. And so through doing it, it was still really uncomfortable. I was terrible at it because I would forget everything that I was supposed to say. And then it just started to get a little bit easier and a little bit easier. And then I realized, wow, this is actually kind of cool because now I'm able to help more people overcome that same fear that I had. And if you think about it this way, most of the fears of public speaking are all internal. They're all, what I really consider to be selfish, because we're thinking about, oh, what if I don't look right? What if I don't sound right? What if they don't like my voice? What if I say something wrong? It's all selfish stuff. And when I realized that, hey, I am who I am, I look the way that I look, my voice sounds the way that it sounds, there's nothing that I can do to change any of that stuff. So get over all of those things that I can't change. And then, am I really that scared of it? And the answer was no, I'm really not that afraid of it. And public speaking, just think about having a conversation with a slightly larger number of people than you would one-on-one.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because I was reading something about public speaking the other day, and it was talking about how actually, that feeling, when you first start talking on stages, especially whether it's a wedding, your best man or whatever the thing is, the clammy palms and the breath, the shallow breath and everything. And this is actually a comedian I was having a discussion with, and he said, if you think about it, what you're doing by going up there on stage in that way is everything against your evolutionary nature. Because let's think about a person on the Serengeti plains in 10,000 years ago, whenever it was. You're going there on your own, with no weapon, nothing, with lights shining down on you. You can't see out. You basically, from an evolutionary perspective, he said it's like the worst possible scenario to be in. So he said what's kind of going on there, the kind of reptilian brain is kicking in, saying, this doesn't feel right. I don't feel I should kind of be up here. I'm not part of a group, kind of environment. I don't have a family or a tribe around me to kind of support me necessarily at that point. So you can totally see why it doesn't feel like the most natural. But then when you kind of get into it and you see this time, I was at the weekend. I was catching a couple of comedy shows and some plays and theatre things at a festival, and you can just see people there. It is, as you were just saying, it's like they're having a discussion, albeit the room has 300 or 500 people in it or something, but it feels very human. It's a very kind of natural kind of experience that they're actually, what's kind of going on there now.
Yeah, I agree. And the cool thing about public speaking is that everybody in the room wants you to win. They didn't take time out of their day to come and hope that you lose and that you do a terrible job. They want you to win. So when you shift your mind and think about that, hey, they're all on my side. They want a good show. They want a good speech. They want to learn something from it. That helps a little bit, at least in my mind too.
Now, I'm imagining, because you have a digital agency, that you are very much into online resources and tools and apps. So can you just, for our listeners, are there any online resources, tools, or mobile apps like Evernote that you absolutely love and you suggest people check out?
Yeah, a couple come to mind. So if you have a website and you're trying to figure out stuff about your website, Google has a bunch of really cool tools as far as figuring out how fast does your site load? Is it mobile friendly? Those are really important resources when it comes to your website itself. You can just Google, I think, mobile friendly checker on Google, it'll show up, or page speed checker on Google, and that'll show up. We have a tool on the homepage of our website that pulls in all of that data. It's free. If you're interested, you can use that. And then other apps that I use a lot is I don't like to write, but yet I have to blog and I have to do other things that require writing. So I use an app called Rev, R-E-V, It's a voice recorder on your phone. So you record whatever you want, and then you click a little button and it'll send the audio to a person, or a real live person transcriber, and they'll transcribe that audio. So they'll take out all the ums and ahs and pauses. And so now if I'm driving somewhere, I can write an email, I can write a blog post, I can write 1,000 words in 10 minutes by speaking it, and then hit send. And then by the time I eat lunch, I have it back all typed up. That's a really cool app that I like a lot. And just to be clear, the app is free, but you do pay for the transcription service. But it's been a really great tool.
It's an awesome tool. I love, we use Rev here for the TV episodes that we do, where we basically, you can just send them the YouTube link of the video you've just recorded, and they'll do the translation, they'll do the transcription for you as well. And I'm always amazed at first of all, how quickly, often within an hour it gets done, and also the accuracy is frightening. It's absolutely frightening.
Yeah.
So if exactly, and if I even know people who have written entire books using that tool as well, where they'll just go and they'll essentially sit down with a friend and do a Q&A of the thing that they want to teach in the book, and then they send those audio recordings to something like Rev, and they at least have the text. They don't have a finished draft of a book, but they at least have the kind of core content that they want to have in that book.
Yeah, and you don't have to deal with the blank page syndrome. I mean, that's my hardest thing with writing is I open a document and it's completely white, and it's this daunting task of, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to write 800 words on this page? So you have the text, and now you can just kind of edit it.
Exactly. So we'll put those on at jamestaylor.me. Just go there and type in Stephen Christopher. You'll get the links for these as well. And if you could recommend just one book and one record to our listeners, one album to say, what would they be?
Yeah. So I do a ton of like personal development stuff. I mean, the book would be probably U Squared. It's by an author named Pritchett. It's a really, really small book. I mean, I need to look at how many pages it is because I talk about this book a lot. It's maybe, 50 pages or 60 pages, but it's double spaced. You could read it in like 2 hours. It's an amazing book, and I highly recommend that everybody read it. I've read it probably 20 to 30 times. I absolutely love it. And then for an album, sticking with the theme of personal development, because that's a majority of what I listen to, I would say The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. Really old, one of the first really audio albums when it came to this topic ever recorded. And I think it was the first one to ever sell like over 1 million copies for an audio album.
Yeah, I mean,
love that one.
He was, now we obviously have podcasts and we have audiobooks and things, but Earl Nightingale, he was there right at the start. And a lot of people, Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins, I think possibly even Tony Robbins, one of his first audiobooks was on, I think it was called Nightingale Conant, I think it was a publishing company.
Yeah.
If I seem to remember. So yeah, that's a long legacy there as well. So let's imagine if you woke up tomorrow morning and had to start from scratch. So you've got the tools of your trade and the knowledge that you acquired over the years, but you know no one knows who you are. How would you restart?
So I would I would meditate, because what I found happened after my last business kind of went under is that I allowed my mind to wander a lot, and I wasted a lot of time getting started with something else. So by taking a real quick little meditation, just getting focused and being present, and then asking myself some questions. What are my skills? What am I good at? How can I add value to the world? And then just writing down what those things were. And then one of the ones being, who can I serve, or who would my ideal client be for this service that I can offer? Really, I mean, I could create a business in, a day, and then start marketing it the next day. So then using the skills of digital marketing and just becoming a presence online, that's how I would go about adding value and then finding clients from that. So I don't know exactly what business it would be, but I know that it would come to me, or I know that I already have it within me. I just have to quiet the rest of my mind and the freak out moments of not having anything to figure out exactly what that would be.
And Stephen, what's the best way for listeners to connect with you, to learn more about your projects and your different business projects?
Yeah, I mean, so our digital marketing agency is Seequs.com, www.seequs.com. If you want to connect with me, go to the Business Revolution website. That's the name of my podcast. That's probably the best way to actually connect. It's bizrevolution.com. And we have a really cool Facebook group. If you want to ask me any questions or anybody else in the community, it's just bizrevolution.com/Facebook. That'll put you right into there. And yeah, I would love to be able to answer any questions that somebody might have based on what I talked about.
Awesome. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I wish you all the best with the business as it goes from strength to strength, and also the podcast as well. Thanks for coming on The Creative Life.
Yeah, James, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, James Taylor here again. And if you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.